Sing. Everybody sing this song now. But let me tell you, we're a peaceful people, struggling with struggle. I mean, I look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside places, from foreign places, talk about taking over, being backing down. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one for us, not a blade of grass. And we love the open country of the Rufanone and the Essequibo, the time of night. No we criticize it. This is the home we love it, and we mean to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not no one to sake, not one rice grain, not one for us, not a blade of grass, not one golden apple, not one jamun, not a drop of water from the farmer road, not one breadfruit, not one white tea, not one guinea, not one lime tree, not a one sapadilla, not one Caroline, not one sugar cane, or a dry of lime, not one sherriga, not one crackate, not one guinea, not one blue sake, not one rice grain. Friend is really all you ask, not a blade of grass. This land is our land now. We're gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow, but never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we're moving from here. Make no mistake. So we ain't giving up the mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up the river. That belongs to we. Not the one blue sake, not the one rice grain, not one for us, not a blade of grass. Every time we sing this song to our Guyanese audience, a chorus does break out. And here is your chorus to break out. All you're trying to sing. You don't come here to sit down and listen, you come here to sing. 1, 2, 1, 2. No, we ain't giving up no mountain. And we ain't giving up. All right. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not the one blue sake. Not the one rice grain. Not one for us. One more time. Not a blade of grass. Let me hear you. No, we ain't giving up no mountain. Yes. No, we ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not the one blue sake.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. I've received your request that I must play the anthem, the anti-war anthem of Guyana. Dave Martin's and the Trade Winds. I remember well 1982 when the song filled our airwaves. And we didn't have TV then, and YouTube and all that stuff, but the radio, because that was 12 years after the pause. You all are hearing that word a lot now in the Middle East. But Dr. Eric Williams had managed to get the Venezuelans and so on in 1970 to agree to a sort of pause because of the hostilities, starting in 1962. Then in 1966, the Venezuelans took over Guyana as part of and Coco Island, and then in 1970 again. And Dr. Eric Williams was able to negotiate a pause, and that ended a 12-year pause, 1982, when the Venezuelans, I think Herrera Campins was then the president of Venezuela, and we said they weren't going to renew it, and saber rattling, as you would have heard that term again. And then this song filled the airwaves. It's always good to have our artists calling upon our patriotism. But this matter, I can assure you, will call for more than patriotism. And that is why I wasn't getting on that, that patriotic thing, because this is serious matter here. This is not just patriotism. We have already seen how linked this Venezuelan matter is to all other matters. It's linked to oil and gas. It's linked to the Americans. It affects the way our local political leaders operate. It has consequences for Venezuelans coming over our borders and all that stuff. So this thing is much more complex than not a blade of grass. But I am not opposed. You all know that I love popular culture. I think it's one of the most serious expressions, political forms of political expression. But one can get too carried away with the patriotism and lose a sense of the real serious implications of what we're dealing with. So if must we sing, not a blade of grass, we have to realize what we are dealing with. Our guest tonight is Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who needs no introduction. And we are going to start off with the Venezuelan issue, because the Venezuelan issue, like I said, is much more than just Venezuela versus Guyana. Good evening to all of you. Good evening. Good evening to my friend Orrin Newton. Good evening, Brenda Casey. Good evening, Ingrid Ambrose. Annette Cummins. You're all regulars. Please share the link and let everyone know that we are rolling tonight. And we are going to be talking with Dr. Henry Jeffrey. And we hope to have the opposition leader here sometime this week. I know we're going to have Dr. Mark Curtin, who is going to be here this week. He's an international relations expert, and he knows that Latin American thing a lot, and so we're going to have him on, and so forth. So it's going to be a busy week for us. But tonight, we are kicking it off. Last night, we had Professor Thomas on, of course, talking about oil and gas. And tonight, Dr. Henry Jeffrey is here, and he's ready. And as I said, we're going to kick off this thing tonight. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David. How are you?
I know lots of blackouts in Guyana. The place is and there's never a dull day in politics, but Venezuela is there.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yes. Is it all about patriotism? Is it much ado about nothing, or is this a moment that historians 20 years from now will look back on and say it was one of those defining moments in our history?
Well, David, you outlined some of the activities of the Venezuelans for the longest while, trying to prevent us from utilizing the Essequibo. I mean, they did all manner of things. They put ad in the Times in London. Only the other day, they tried to they steered one of the oil ships that were doing some research to margaritas and so on. I mean, this has been an ongoing process. They stopped us, for instance, from trying to get into the OAS until about 1991. So this has been an ongoing process. And every time, ever so often, you can negotiate to pause and it stops for 12 years. But the minute the 12 years is about to complete, they start again with this. So, yes, I mean, this is more than, well, it's not more than patriotism, because in issues like this, it can't be more or less than patriotism. You have to understand the issues and take a stand on them. And there is no way that Venezuela has a credible case to Guyana's land. I mean, the arbitration was completed in 1899, but they remember, this was between Britain and Venezuela. Essentially, Britain gave up more land than Venezuela, but Britain was claiming straight to the Orinoco. That was the British claim. The British did not want to go to arbitration. You know, as a political man, David, much more so than I, you would know that the Americans and Britain nearly went to war on this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was maybe the last time that this threat took place between two democratic countries. Democracies don't go to war with each other. You know that theory. Yes, it's there. And this is perhaps the last time that kind of threat took place. But that's on the side. So effectively, what we have is that the British, because they were like, we are in their position now because we are the government here, gave up the lands right to the Orinoco from our borders. Schwambach, remember the
Yes.
surveyor Schwambach came down here from the Royal Society and did this kind of analysis. And they got some lines, and the British were clear. They said, we are not going for anything outside of the Schwambach line. We're not going this. But we have claims to the Orinoco. They lost all of their claims to the Orinoco. And I think a little bit into the Schwambach line too, and there goes the present border. So the present border is just not something that the British won. The arbitrators, in my view, taking into consideration all the facts, the laws, and everything, came up with this decision that that is where the border should be. And we have lived with those borders for the longest while. The person who raised this whole issue is Malay Provost. I think that's his. And he was he was a junior counsel, but he was the secretary for the other side, the Venezuelan side. And he, for a week, just when he was still smarting, because I don't know why he thought that they're going to win everything, but still smarting from that a few weeks after the arbitration, the same year, he wrote to one of the counselors and says, I believe that the British judge, the British forced Martinez, the Russian chairman, into making all these agreements with thing, and Venezuela was robbed of their territory and all that. He speaks, and because it did not go according to law, it did not go into law. But if the law was he was a junior counsel, and maybe at that time he thought that these things, and it's not only law. People got to look at you. Look, have to live together with each other. Or to put it and put it another way, the law must, at that level, must take into consideration the capacity of people to live together and all that sort of moral context. Go to the Supreme Court, the things they do and all that. It's just not simple that. So he thought, and then he wrote this letter, but he wrote it and said it should not be made public until his death, which was somewhere in the 1940s or something like that. And that is where we are today. And that's where we are. It is not a question. What we are not discussing at the border. We are what they are discussing at the World Court is the validity of what he said. Can the validity of the agreement? And I can't see them. So when I say that we have a good case, a very more than good case, it's I actually mean that. I don't think this is going anywhere. And he wrote that letter when he was smarting from maybe he was the secretary and God knows what he felt, what he's pumping on others, and he was smarting at the fact that this is how it went on. He must be told them they're going to win everything, as lawyers tend to do in terms of So that is why I said we have a good case. We have a better than good case, and they are likely they can't get over it. But come 1960, there's a big question. There's a bigger question. Why 1962? I mean, they made
right. And that's where I was going. So you preempted me. Go right
there. Yeah, there's 1962. You remember what was 1962 in the worldwide context?
The Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the issue. The Cuban Missile Crisis and Cherry Jagan, a communist, perhaps even Burnham, they thought, but he was more like a Tito white socialist. So Guyana wrote, I saw somewhere, and they used to call him the young Tito or something like that. Right. Yes, that he was more like a Tito white socialist. And Tito by that time meant for your audience.
And hold your thought there. Something I never said in public. And this is over my interviews with Guyana. The Americans had come down during that time and were courting Guyana as a consensus leader. And they suggested to him that they prefer a Scandinavian type of socialism. And they saw him as representing the Scandinavian type of socialism. They went up to County High School and told him. I wouldn't say on the air what Guyana told me he talked about telling them. But to make your point,
yes,
here was Jagan, communist, Burnham a kind of Tito socialism, and the Americans are interested in what are my choices here in Guyana. I may try with Guyana and try to tell him he should be a Scandinavian socialist.
Yeah. But they found the Scandinavian in Burnham.
In Burnham, eventually, right?
And therefore, they were. And make no mistake, Burnham didn't want to join with them. They had to get serious people to speak to Burnham and took him to what was the hotel in Camp Street that Kisuna held there, whole thing, Park, no?
Yes, Park Hotel, the big hotel that they
they had
shots middle class people used to hang out.
Tried to convince Burnham that he should join with them. But the truth is, by which time we know now that Jagan had already written a letter to the Communist International through Poland, say that he is fighting. He wants to bring the whole of the Caribbean more or less into communism. So when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, these people, and remember, democracy is a good thing, I've said, but democracy can't be a good thing when it wants to end democracy. If you're going to try to use your majority in Guyana to end democracy, they're not going to sit down and let you do it. And so effectively, that is what was taking place here. So the
Venezuelans are intervening at that critical moment in which Guyana is in the spotlight.
Yes, and you see, we have to understand too that any kind of relationships that are going to be developed after that. Remember, after that, what happened? This thing come up. Chavez said at the Pegasus in my presence that when the whole audience was there, indeed, I thought the newspaper that carried big the next day, but it's only the Chronicle, I think, carried some a little bit. Chavez said this whole thing come up because they wanted to stop Jaguar. Chavez said, Hugo Chavez. It's not that he could do anything much about it at that time because they had already pumped up people for a long time, since 62, that, the land belonged to us, the land belonged to us. Maybe he would have made concessions and so on, or just keep it there running, because border disputes go on forever, and keep it there running. But he said it, Jagan wrote it, that this is what this thing is all about. It's the Americans wanted to stop him, just in case Burnham did not. Because remember, Jagan had a majority. He had a majority of Indians voting, although they bring the voting age down to 18. You remember the voting age?
Yes.
To stop it. They did every possible thing to stop Jagan. When you come to Georgetown, you can win a seat with like 4,000, 5,000 voters. So you go, Bobby, you gotta get 10 and 12,000. So there was quite clear Jagan wasn't coming to power, not after they. And don't fool yourself. He can send secret letter where he like and think it's secret. It's not secret from the CIA and all these jobs, right? So the minute he must be handed it to CIA. So effectively, these people knew that was the intention. And the result is that they will not have stood for it. And that is the why. We are in this largely because of that. There's no question about it. After all, I mean, and that's why, when people say that Guyana is alone, Guyana should not be alone. Venezuela, and if Chavez know it, what's his name know? Maduro know it. They know. So effectively, in a situation like this, international politics, they don't have any world police informally. And therefore, when you get caught in this one, you have to have strong friends. If you are not strong enough, and we are certainly not strong enough to take on Venezuela, we have to have strong friends. And it's the same strong friends that caused the problem in the first place. Same strong friends. So I am not cornering with them for causing the problem, because I certainly didn't want any communism in Guyana. You might have been different.
I was a little child then, Dr. David.
Yeah, but
I know you're talking in retrospect.
Yeah, I certainly didn't want no communism in Guyana, but you are. So effectively, I'm still but I'm the younger Marx, I'm the younger Marx, alienation and all of that. I'm not this thing about the Communist Manifesto and, that sort of thing. Anyway, so effectively, it's America brought this on us.
So the point you're making is that 1962 was about geopolitics.
Of course.
It was about geopolitics
Of course.
and where Guyana stood in the geopolitical calculations at that time of the United States of America.
Yes.
Right. Fast forward to 2023. Geopolitics again?
No, I think this is not simply geopolitics. It's a whole lot of issues. First of all,
talk to us about
Venezuela, if Venezuela didn't kick out Exxon, we went to find oil. Nobody
talk us through that.
But nobody found the oil in Guyana. They knew the oil was there, but Venezuela got how many? 10 times more oil than you. So you think Exxon is on the Orinoco. It's around the area.
Right.
Good. So Venezuela and Exxon fell out. And Exxon can't put away they know the next thing is.
The next one.
Because it's there. If you got the right technology, you know it's there. Very few Guyanese in there know. Always, the few that you know. Say, oil is there. Oil is there. You're finding oil. How can we not find oil in Ghana? We're finding Trinidad. But in real terms, and this is my theory about all of it, I believe this oil was being why quarrel Venezuela? Venezuela got the biggest oil reserve in the world, and if you come on this land, they're gonna quarrel you. There's no question about that. And now, not only are you finding oil, but you are finding oil from the enemy they chased away. The enemy they chased out of Venezuela is now the enemy standing up here saying, look how much oil I got. So they feel bad on that score, but I don't think they can do much about that enemy. And the context, too, allow the internal politicians to play the game when they're under pressure. So Maduro is under pressure. What best issue to raise here now than the Guyana border problem? To solidify the people behind me and to try to show that I'm fighting, and maybe this is a time, as the PPP found out, for national unity. This is the time for national. The PPP, they were making new politics. They don't care about the opposition, and they're bypassing them. They're going to the people themselves. Well, why didn't go now? Because it was always a sham.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying the internal situation in Venezuela is thriving. Our internal situation here is hospitable to this kind of development.
And our internal situation led to the opposite of what it has led to in Venezuela. Right? Our internal position make people running now for national unity. They are using it now to bring national unity to destroy the opposition over there. So effectively, and that is what we are faced with. And perhaps to make the final point is to say that Venezuela ain't going away, court case or nothing. They already said and agree. And when they say, well, I am not, we have agreed. And countries, as I said, you got no world police. Look what happened to China and Philippines in the China Sea. China, and by the way, Taiwan, so they ain't agree. And this is China and Taiwan. So we don't agree with it, and they're not agreeing with it. They do nothing with this international body. I think that was UNCLOS. Whatsoever it was. And what happened to Chagos Island with Britain? Yeah, Britain says, yeah, they were supposed to, is Mauritius or somebody, they're supposed to give back the island to. First of all, they had a UN. They had a UN statement of it. You had UNCLOS statement made the World Court, as a matter of fact, made an issue of that and says that Britain should give back these people Britain's conclusion. We'll give them back when we don't want it anymore. It's a defense issue. We can give them back when we feel like. So The court case, what the court case does, and perhaps that maybe the Venezuela don't like that either. What the court case says, boss, you really ain't got a leg to stand on in this issue. It says that to the Venezuela. Look, we look at this, and the agreement is sound, and that's what they'll have to face. But they're not going to agree to it, just like the others don't agree to it. And there is, you can see it. I have no idea, because it's a useful thing for internal politics, and it's good, just like Chavez. He comes there, he says that's why this thing was raised, but he can't deal with it at home. Since 1962, they are telling people all sort of thing. Oh, you want to now turn and tell these people something else. So that's the context of the Guyana problem. We got to be totally prepared at any one moment. A lot of resources got to go into this. And that was always Burnham's concern. That you know much resources we got to do to national service, to got to do this, and then the defense thing. What? Yeah, you remember that you used to have defense bonds?
Yes.
Also, the thing, you know much resources. Well, at least we got some resources now that we can spend. But effectively, it's a whole lot of resources we could have used for other things. You got your army ready, not to defeat Venezuela, but at least to stop them before your friends can act.
Yes.
You see, you got to first of all, you got to be prepared, because if you are not going to be prepared and just lying in, other people might not take you serious. But you have to be prepared, and you have to be prepared in a way to stop them at all costs until you can mobilize your friends to do whatsoever the little that they can do. And so that's where we are. And we're going to be like this forever for the longest while, because every so often Venezuela will come up with something, regardless of what the court says.
And I'm very glad you make that point, because it points to the complexity. Some people are projecting this thing as a war between, or potential war between, Venezuela and Guyana, and we need to get our friends. The Venezuelans want to come in here because Exxon is here and the Americans won't allow it, and so on and so on and so forth. Totally ignoring the fact that Venezuela doesn't have to invade, but by doing what they're doing, they're forcing us to act in particular ways. And, we will have to expend resources on it. And that's a very key point. But I want to come back, Henry, to the issue of national unity in Guyana and how that is being played out with this Venezuelan thing. Already, we are seeing the contradictions come to the fore. Aubrey Norton he met with the president and his team. A lot of Norton supporters didn't want him to go there and meet just like that. He went, however. We later learned that he did make some demands, and one of the things that he demanded was show us how many Venezuelans are here, and we need that as a prerequisite to proceeding, and so on. Long story short, was it a political blunder for Norton to, in the first place, go and meet under this thing of national unity?
No, not at all in my view.
Right.
First of all, Mort, he had to show. Remember, the PVP thing is negativity about the PNC, and they're on that road, and that the PNC don't want to do nothing and this and that. The PNC went, and they had agreements about giving us information. The Venezuela thing was only one, and so on. Well, the people don't want to give you anything or anything that got to do with rigging elections for a start. So, he must know that. So effectively, it was about the information, what the motion should have contained, and all of that sort of thing, and then the timing of the motion and all that, and then tell them something about oh, we're in 2 weeks, and then along before 2 weeks, 2 weeks would have been about, the mid-month or something like that. And anyway, then they suddenly sent him a thing and said, hey, the third or the thing will be the meeting, the day that was the meeting. That will be the day of the meeting. Without discussion, they were supposed to discuss with the chief whip. They were supposed to do none of that took place. And by the way, I'm hearing this all. My information come all from the press. I have no big. I know people in the PNC. I can talk to them, but all this I'm telling you come
from the press, right?
Go. You read it, you will see it there. And effectively, what the people was essentially doing is trying. I don't know if they were testing, because they know Uganda in this national unity mode here. It's hard to back out without, looking thing. But the question for me was, did Norton get what he wants? You should know that you're a party man. So I don't know. Did these people give him information that he wants before he turned up there and they were saying, they were putting forward this as the criteria for our participation? Did he get what he wanted, or he just went and participated? No, I don't know. I haven't seen any. I don't know. I mean, I can find out. I didn't try to find out anything.
I'm going to have Norton here tomorrow night. The audience, for you, the audience is scheduled to be here tomorrow night. Yeah. Whether he will tell us things that may be state secret or not.
No, but I will put that state secret.
I will put that question to him. Did he get what he
wants? State secret in the press that you asked for the following. It's there in the Static News. It's there. You asked for the following things. Did you get those things before you went and there? And how much did you get and how much did you not get? A great problem in this country. Nobody wants to give you data, and then they tell you, people going to tell you, go find your data. But my own thing is that what's that secret? Yes, I did. No, I did not. They did not give me this. But in the interest of the country, I think I should still have gone, because there may be other ways. But at least people must know if the PPP did come around and give you the data, or if they're just hanging with it out there and doing what they want. And why you got to be suspicious? Because you need not be suspicious of them if they have provided the data that you wanted, or if they could not provide it at that time. When will they provide it?
Where, and this is the large question I'm asking you here, where does internal dynamics stop and national interests, overriding national interests, begin? Is there a point?
Well, yes, it's how you put the question rather than what you're asking. Because national interest should be at the forefront of every politician.
Of everything, including
all the time.
Right.
It should not be, and that's why Parliament is organized as it is.
Yes.
Now, Parliament have committee stages, so that even if you win an election, well, we go by more than one seat, but even if you win a one-seat majority, and let's say you go to Parliament and you have, you want to stop Jeffrey from smoking or hang him, something like that. Let me make something absurd. You might say that's not too absurd, but the point is, but you want to do something absurd like that. Yeah. You go and Parliament gives you a first reading is just putting what you want to do on the table for the most part. But it gives you a second reading to discuss the principles of the issue. And when you are discussing the principles, you can't stand it, or this thing about doing what you want to Jeffrey is unacceptable to you, you gotta make sure that you take political action. But on the other hand, if you agree that, all right, Jeffrey's been doing this wicked thing and so on, and we need to discipline him. They come, and you say that in the second reading on principle. Yes, we understand Jeffrey is a very wicked person and he needs discipline. But we think that there are other ways to achieve the objective you want. Then you have a second reading, you have a third you have a committee stage. It is at the community. That's why you have that committee stage, That committee stage for you and the opposition to sit there and work out something in the national interest that both of you can live with. You might have won the election, you are government, but the committee stage is for you to sit there and try to come to something that is closer to the national. After all, half the people in Ghana vote for the opposition. In most countries, a whole lot of people vote for the opposition. So this is not just a question of you want it and your manifesto says so, as the PPP love to show. It's not your manifesto. You are a party by definition. You are part of the country and not the whole country. You are not. The other person is, and also part of that country. And therefore, you have to sit with that person from what your manifesto says as a issue of principle and deal with it. But nobody wants. My manifesto says so I can do it. What kind of democracy? Well, this is not democracy, period. But that's not the point. The point is that you got to understand what the parliament was, how it's organized, and what it's for. It's for you and the opposition to sit down and say, all right. You want, okay, you want to do this to Jeffrey, fine. But we think you can do it in this way. That is more thing to, and would more be agreeable to our people. And then you will have an agreement. But not here. You don't even want committee stage. Jagan said that we should have, that the PPP, the government, his government, anytime a bill is more than 6 pages, he put it down to pages. But the 6 pages, it should go to committee. It's too long for anybody to understand and just vote that. These people get hundreds of pages of bill for the same day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this not on them side, on their side alone. How people gonna understand it? So effectively, that is a thing. So the national interest is solved by the Constitution. But the Constitution, given what it is in our case, that it's a Westminster type Constitution that one seat and you can win, and you really don't have every month to hold the government accountable. How you going to hold any government accountable when everybody voting for their side regardless of what they do? So you don't see the system is broken. The system can't work in all kind of country. Every day is at that morning. I fed up. People crying. Oh, the government was the end after they see how wicked the government is, or because it's only the wicked ones who are hold it accountable. Otherwise, it's fine what it did. But we got to hold it accountable. How you going to hold it when you can? Most of the things you say would cast the PPP vote. You can talk about oil till you're dead in the water. You think that casting the PPP any votes of any seriousness from their traditional vote? No. So effectively, and the opposite goes to, so effectively, that's what we have.
That's
the
what we have. The national interest. Good evening to all of you. Yes, you're on to Politics 101, and we have Dr. Jeffrey here tonight. We have been talking about the Venezuelan situation, but we've not been talking about Venezuela and war and so on, but looking at the context in which the Venezuelan thing is being played out, and what are some of the subtext of the Venezuelan situation. We're going to keep looking at it. Tomorrow night, we expect Aubrey Norton to be here. And I'm saying we expect, Aubrey, I know Aubrey, we are colleagues and so on. But he's a busy man, and in the past he has promised to come on to this program and then cancel. So I hope he comes tomorrow. But he's done. He has given me all assurances. He'll be here tomorrow. So a lot of these questions I'm going to put to him directly. The big question is, as Jeffrey has put it, did he get what he asked for before he went and meet with the president and his team? Jeffrey, one last question on this Venezuelan thing. We have the issue of these Venezuelans coming over the border, entering Guyana. And of course, that is two-pronged. On the one hand, some people are arguing they're economic migrants or they are forced migrants from their country. But in terms of real politics, any people coming in those numbers, as we've been hearing, over the border, given our electoral situation, it is not unfair that some people believe that's an open season for electoral rigging. We have heard calls for closing the borders, doing an assessment of how many Venezuelans are here, etc., etc., etc. We have heard the possibility of gangs and violent people coming over the border. We have heard the possibility of spies coming over the border. And as I said, there's the issue of the Venezuelans being used as part of electoral rigging. We saw the vice president meeting with members of that community and saying to them, look, the opposition don't like you. Again, what might be what should be a straightforward issue. Here you are, you have problems in Venezuela. We are showing signs as a country that have some wealth. People are going to come over the border, etc., etc. But it doesn't look to be that simple. And when one takes into consideration, and I'm going to throw this in and then come over to you, that the Haitians were coming here. I mean, they're not over the border, but they were eventually coming here. And the government took a strong stand against them, arguing about human trafficking and all of that stance. We're not hearing the government talk about human trafficking with the Venezuelans coming over. Am I am I over suspicious, Henry Jeffrey?
I don't know. Everything you've said there are possibilities. You got to put all those things. I mean, we are living in a country that everybody rigging election and trying to mess around with the list. The European Union in the last report says between 2015 and 2020, the list increased by 20%. Anyway, what I'm saying to you, this is not unusual, and you cannot put it again past the PPP or anybody else in that sort of power thing. That's why Ben Orbie said, ask them about the Venezuelans. He hit the nail on the head, and they didn't give him any information from the newspapers.
Yes.
You understand? That's the nail on the head here. That's where the rubber gonna hit the road in those interland areas. Because they want to win election. They don't even care about the Guyanese population with all the blackouts and all this sort of foolishness. Instead, they should have by now, with our oil wealth, they should have a population policy with defining Guyanese clearly, defining who are first and second rate and what they're supposed to have and what they can't have. Define our Caribbean brothers being CARICOM being with us. What are they? What can they get out of all of this? We don't even have a proper population policy like that. If you go to Kuwait and all these Arab countries, you can't become no Guyanese. So, as me, I don't think you can ever become a Guyanese if your mother wasn't, if you didn't, if you weren't in Islam, or all these things. Because if they do all of that, They can't give the people the kind of life. You get married, you get thousands of dollars, you do this, everybody got get employed regardless of where you. They couldn't do it. And the result of we don't have the but indeed, if you ask this lot for anything, they'll tell you, oh, if we give them a couple dollars, they wouldn't work anymore. Like if any the couple dollars they will give to anybody's what people would make people stop working. Poverty is relative. When you see David there in his fancy car and you couple dollars can't buy the man gonna look for work. You understand me? But you got this old time. I mean, you know what kind of mentality is it? Oh, they wouldn't want to work if you don't do. They give them this if you give them a universal basic income. They're not gonna work. United Nations, they give the people universal basic income. You signed it as a matter to give it to the poor so they don't have to be poor. No Guyanese should go to sleep without waking up in the morning, having somewhere to sleep and wake up in the morning, not having anything to eat, maybe the basic thing. This is what you are there to do, not to build road, and the roads you are building are not even generational roads. You somebody come in and throw some cement and messing around, they're gonna break up in 3 years. When you are doing these things, when you have this kind of money, they gotta be generational. You got this money, when you build a road, it's supposed to be about 30 years you should have in mind. And you said, we got build roads that gonna last. Not Carl Jeffrey with 2 wheelbarrow and got him building roads. And say, but politicians are more interested here in staying in power than in the about the people. So that is the central issue.
The oil blocks that were distributed recently, you and I and a few others have been hammering away at the lack of equitable distribution of the resources. Our friend Nigel Hughes has been doing research and contracts and all of that kind of stuff. And Barra Jagdeo admitted a few months ago, that none of the oil blocks prior to now were awarded to African Guyanese. He said that is so. And now we are hearing that one oil block has been awarded to a group of women, CISPRO, who have this company. And we were speculating that a second one was being awarded to a husband-wife Guyanese. It turned out that they're not Guyanese from what I've been reading in the last 24 hours. They're actually from Africa. But at least we know one Guyanese group has been awarded an oil block. It is Guyana. There is speculation as to why they were awarded the block. What did they have to do to be awarded that block? I think Mark Benshop was unearthed an interview by one of the ladies in which he said, Black entrepreneurs, African Guyanese entrepreneurs should stop complaining and work hard, etc., etc. What do you make of that development?
First of all, yes, you're right. The whole thing is suspicious. And if what you and many people, and perhaps myself too, suspect, it would seem that the people can just determine who will get oil blocks, regardless of all the tender they're talking about.
Yes.
It does, if that can happen. But I'm pleased that these people got their oil blocks.
So am I.
I am very pleased that regardless of the context. And people say, they don't know nothing about oil. I said, I'm not certain you need to know anything about oil. You don't even need to know nothing about gold to get a gold claim and all this sort of things. But, and when I was in Minister House and I went to Venezuela for the Venezuelan Investment Fund. And to fund the Venezuelan houses we end up with about 300 income. And the young lady that won the bid was about 21. She just out of university. She, because her father was in that kind of business, she was able to put together some contractors and all of that and so on. She knew how to do it, and she won the bid. Indeed, I had the other companies that have been there for years come and said that they can get rid of the dick. I said, what does that do with me? Venezuela Investment Fund, they determined that this girl, she at that time where she was 20 or 21, she put together some people and she won the contract for the millions of US dollars. So I don't have a problem right here, as I said, gold blocks, people do. So I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to deal with all of that. I'm saying I'm glad that they have won their contract. We will have to wait and see. It's two blocks they're gonna.
Yeah, 2 blocks.
2 blocks. So one in high water, one in deep water. No, that's all right. And I'm saying good luck to them, because they look like people that are serious about what they're doing, and they got managerial planning and managerial capacities, and that is essentially what you want for the nature, the context, and of course the capital. But even that they can go and find once you got their back. So look what happened to Exxon and Chevron only a couple of days ago. If you got something, people want it, and it's so effectively. Yes, it's suspicious that the manufacture they could have manufactured. But even if that was the case and these people succeed, I'm with it.
Henry Jeffrey. Henry, we read in the newspapers last week or maybe the week before that a group of mainly African Americans, business people, former state representatives, they've put together a fact-finding mission, and they're due to arrive in Guyana, I think November 13th or 14th, to carry out a fact-finding mission. And we know at the conference in Washington, D.C., there was a call for fact-finding mission to come to Guyana. Well, here we have a fact-finding mission slated to come on beginning, I think, November 13 or 14. Is that a positive development, at least from the standpoint of the opposition?
I think that Guyana, all right, let me put it this way. The fact-finding mission that will come to Guyana will hardly have any facts about Guyana, to be truthful. You will have, because Guyana they don't do the kind of analysis and put it in the public domain about ethnicity. I think it is, I said that in my article, it's such a shame that for 6 decades, 2 generations, we are quarreling about ethnicity, and we don't have ethnic thing about wealth and schooling and all of that. We have nothing. All we maybe in the general thing in the census. How is that? I ask anybody, go on Google about ethnicity in America and see the number of areas. Yeah, David, I can say to you, yeah, and this implicates both governments, both PNC and PPP. The PPP came. The PPP says, oh, well, yeah, all right, let me start it. PPP says, have school grant or whatsoever for children to go to school. Good, great. Of course, that's where they end that story. Brazil got school grant, Bolsa something or the other. I think it was Mexico it started, Jamaica. But to get the school grant, you gotta see that the people go to school, right? Now, the PPP comes and it says, oh, we are putting in the school grant. And before the PPP, I was there. I was minister. Me and Bibi Shadiq tried to sit down and work something out that says school grants must be given, but it must be tied to people go to school. Now, sit back and ask yourself. The coalition came, they take it away altogether. No school grant. Now, I can look back and say, and when the PB come and they give it to it again, and they're giving it around time when they got parties and all this sort of thing. So it's not like they're giving these things so people go to school. It's giving for it to party. It's a way of buying votes. Because if you really want an African guy, and he's got a large, particularly in urban areas, got a larger truant thing about their children going to school, their mother, they're all over the place and doing guard and doing all this kind of work in the night. You can sit down here. I can sit down here and quite, well, can't safely because there's no data. But I say, look, the PPP is doing this really because it doesn't care if Afro-Guyanese children go to school. If it cares about African Guyana, because Indo-Guyanese, they have a more deep family relationship and they don't suffer from the same sort of situations that African Guyanese come, and they are not as truant and all of that in the general scheme of things. So they don't care if African Guyanese go to school. So they are giving this grant next to big party and so on. They're giving it the heights of the holiday. By the time the thing finished, nobody ain't getting none of the grant. Whether or not you go to school is irrelevant. Now, your one can say, people have said to me, oh, well, I said, the coalition behaved like they did for ignorance. But I would argue that the people behaved that because directly to affect Africans.
To affect, yes.
You understand me? So, Guyana needs proper statistics, and somebody must gotta keep abreast of where these people come and what they are coming for, because they will know very little about Guyana. Yeah. You go to the PBP, they will tell you their story and they're gonna give you a whole lot of generalities, it's gonna mean nothing. And you come over this side and with the little money in Nigeria, everybody can put together, they'll put together something. But what everybody should be pressing for in this country for 60 years, been running around like this, is that we must have serious ethnic data, ethnic disparity, how it come about, where it going, how thing. People they never want to grab, but that would put a lick in their whole thing to impoverish blacks, to force them to vote for it. Because they can't do it. And that is one thing these people can do for you, but you got to let them understand it. The data I'm presenting here, I present them with it. But I always say this is Henry Jeffrey trying here. This is not serious, none. Right? This is not serious anything. So they can help, but they can also help with the constitutional and electoral reforms you want. But you got to put in proper context for where they come from and how they must understand. You see, they have a different society. Since I was minister, they don't even understand that we don't have constituencies. It's a whole lot of hard thing. Even Caribbean people can't understand that a minister ain't really no constituencies. They put you in them, or except for the 10 or so that during the regional constituency. And still nobody know which got anything like that. And it is not well known. So effectively, they can help you with that kind of thing. You can do. But at the end of the day, David, it's what the Americans themselves say wrong with the system, the winner-take-all system. And that is the crunch. That is the answer. You might do the other things I've been speaking about to prevent and stymie the PVV from moving in a given way because of their orientation. But I'm saying that is the central issue. You can't win an election by one person and that or two and think you can run the country for everybody. It's not going to work. It has not worked. And that is it.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, weighing in on the issues of our day. We were just talking there about the fact-finding mission, which should be here in a couple of weeks. and what we could expect from that. We spent a lot of time on the Venezuelan issue, and then the issue of a couple of oil blocks being awarded to a company owned by African Guyanese women. Dr. Jeffrey, as usual, thank you very much for coming through. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And to your audience, again, thank you all so much for staying with us another night. You know what Barnum used to say? Watch with me one more night, you know. Lord. Tomorrow night, we expect the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, to be here. So please spread the word. And later on, I think Thursday or Friday, we're having Dr. Mark Curtin, who is an expert on the Latin American situation, to come here and to talk us through the international relations aspect of that Venezuela. Brazil, which is a player that we haven't talked about on this issue of Venezuela. So again, thank you all very much, and I'll see you all tomorrow night for another edition of Politics 101.